Zenless Zone Zero released a couple of days before my birthday, and it honestly feels like a surprise birthday gift, because my god, I was not expecting to like it as much as I did. This game is so well made that I'm glad I decided to give it a chance, and I genuinely believe you should too, which is why I am making this review of it. But before we jump into all of the good things I have to say about this game, and believe me, I've got plenty of good things to say about it, let me first share with you all of the downsides of the game that I've noticed so far, since I think these are going to be the most important factors to consider when deciding whether you want to commit or not. Zenless Zone Zero is the latest IP installment developed and released by HoYoverse, the same company behind Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, and just like its counterparts, it's a gacha game, which is in of itself inherently a downside. Now, I know that saying a game's genre is a downside raises an immediate giant red flag. However, it's not as bad as you think. There is nuance to it. Let me explain. At a surface level, Zenless Zone Zero is completely free to play. This means that you can download the game right now and immediately interact with all of its gameplay aspects, including story, combat, and minigames, without spending a single dime. And you could keep doing that. Always. You don't need to spend money to play. The way the game generates its revenue will be through consistently releasing new characters at a set interval, and in order to get these characters, you'll have to either get really lucky, or spend money to pull them through the game's summoning system, making the game a glorified slot machine. Now, it's important to keep in mind that Zenless Zone Zero is a game made by HoYoverse, and therefore its transactional system heavily adheres to HoYoverse's design philosophy, which means that the game has a lot of gameplay, a lot of good gameplay, let me add, and it does not directly shove the gacha or the spending aspect down your throat, and that's a good thing. Nonetheless, regardless of how good the gameplay is, this is still going to be a game where you can potentially lose thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars over a prolonged period of time if you have a gambling addiction or if you are not careful with your money. So if you want to support the developers, make sure you spend responsibly. Oh, and for those of you who might be wondering what the gacha rates look like, it's basically the same as in Genshin and Star Rail. You are guaranteed an S-rank character or a 5-star every 90 pulls, and there will always be an accompanying weapon banner for each limited character. In ZZZ they call them W engines, which I believe stands for War Engines. And since I brought up the similarities of Zenless Zone Zero with Genshin and Star Rail, let us talk about some differences, because one potentially major downside for some people is going to be the fact that, comparatively speaking, ZZZ completely lacks the giant and entirely explorable open world aspect of Genshin Impact that initially solidified HoYoverse's place on the global map of the gaming industry. And when I say that Zenless Zone Zero lacks exploration, it's even significantly less than that of Honkai Star Rail. Like, if Genshin is a massive open world RPG where you can go wherever you want, whenever you want, then Honkai Star Rail would be the next step down in terms of exploration. It's a turn-based game, but it has still a reasonable amount of exploration where you can go around the maps of different planets searching for puzzles, loot, and quests. And then you have Zenless, which is not the next step down from Star Rail, but rather the entire fucking staircase under the ground step down. And let me be clear, this might not be a bad thing for everyone, I don't mind it for example, but if you are someone used to running around the game and exploring, in ZZZ you are going to be stuck inside a small sufficient neighborhood where you will do all your work, with some other areas to go to every now and then, but those are also equally limited so far. And that is really about it in terms of downsides. Yeah, like I said, there aren't that many. This is a very well-made game, but I suppose I should mention that it will also come with a hefty time commitment, as you will be incentivized to log in daily for the sake of completing missions and events to get the in-game summoning currency and also level up your existing characters. Now, I have noticed a bunch of minor bugs and glitches in addition to occasional frame drops and buffering. I have an RTX 4090, and so far the game did actually crash once while I was recording, but I am going to be extremely conservative with my assessment of these issues as I am making this review on the day of the game's release, and usually these kinds of issues are to be expected this early on. For a recent point of comparison, Elden Ring's DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree, just came out a short while ago, and it basically had the exact same problems in the first few hours. I am sure HoYoverse will patch them in a few days. With the downsides out of the way, let us get into all of the upsides, and man, I love this game! It feels so clean and well put together. First and foremost, let's talk about the visuals. This game is a strict graphical upgrade over all of Hoyoverse's other IPs, not just in terms of animations, but also in terms of object quality and fidelity. The graphics are top-notch, and the art style is so aesthetically pleasing. The developers somehow managed to strike this delicate balance where they give you a very modern urban world while still perfectly blending in certain aspects that you would expect to see from a video game in the 80s or the 90s. And they did that so freaking well. And did I tell you that the character animations are the best across all of Hoyoverse's games? Because those animations are indeed utilized in the combat system itself. When it comes to the combat, I haven't reached the harder quote-unquote endgame modes of Zenless Zero yet, so I can't tell you how challenging it gets. But just by the little I played, I can already see that there is a lot of room for skill expression in this game, especially when it comes to maximizing animation canceling techniques and combo swapping to the right characters. However, the combat is actually fun, and it is very well designed. The real question is how far will Hoyoverse be willing to take this combat system and expand upon it? Because just by looking at their track record, they are good at making fun gameplay, but when it comes to getting the most out of it, it's usually a hit or miss. Sometimes they do it really well, and other times they fumble the bag. Now, like I said earlier, ZZZ is a gacha game, but unlike most other gachas, it's not a garbage slot machine meant to suck your money. Despite the, well, let's face it, extremely high cost of topping up for character summons, Hoyoverse's developers have always gone out of their way to make sure that they deliver the highest quality products they can possibly put out within their development schedules. With a few mishaps every now and then, they always make sure that what you are paying for is well polished and high quality. So even if the price can sometimes be way too high, there is real gameplay to the game. So, how do you play Zenless Zone Zero? The story has two main characters, Belle and Wise, who are also known as Phaethon. To get straight to the point without going over too many technical terms, the two are essentially operation managers who communicate from the backlines with active units in combat zones. And to get to those combat zones, you will play as one of the two siblings of your choice while navigating a network of TV screens where you will solve puzzles and stack buffs on your characters. I've heard a lot of people being off-put by the TV screen navigation, however, don't overthink it. It is not bad once you get the hang of it, and on the contrary, I actually think it's quite fun. In between solving TV puzzles and stacking buffs, you will occasionally stumble across combat zones, where you'll kill a group of enemies with your characters, and then keep moving forward until you complete your objective or defeat the final boss. Also, one more thing, I really like the dynamic between Belle and Wise. Both are resourceful and smart, and neither of them is obnoxious. They are way better than their counterparts in Genshin with the Traveler and Paimon. Belle and Wise, regardless of which one you play as, will work together as a team all the time, and they both play an active role in the story. They are such refreshing main characters, and to be completely honest, one of the biggest reasons I'm going to keep playing this game moving forward is them. In fact, I would say they are like 40 to 50% of why I'm sticking with ZZZ. Another important aspect of Zenless Zone Zero is going to be the story presentation, and the story of ZZZ plays very much like a comic or a manga. And when I say comic or manga, I do mean it, since significant portions of the story are presented in the form of manga panels, which I found weird at first but quickly got accustomed to. And honestly, thinking about it now, it fits the game's vibes and style a lot. It's unique, but in a good way, which is the best kind of unique. But don't worry, you won't be spending the whole game switching through TV screens and flipping through manga panels. Like I said earlier, there are animations and there are animated cutscenes that will be sprinkled in between during important scenes. Aside from the animation, the voice acting for the playable characters in this game is pretty damn good. But this is standard practice for Hoyoverse at this point, and also the dialogue itself is a lot more mature in terms of the jokes and the type of language they are willing to use in comparison with their other games. Look, I know I've been overly positive about Zenless Zone Zero, but I am truly pleasantly surprised by how good this game turned out to be. To me, ZZZ is basically a perfect video game, and I am someone who very rarely says something like that. Elden Ring is one of the very few games that I believe to be a perfect video game, and I'm not saying this because I am trying to compare the two or even put ZZZ on the same level as Elden Ring. That's not the point. What I mean when I say a perfect video game is exactly what the words imply: a video game that feels complete, a game that gives you what to expect from it. For some other examples, you have Ori and the Will of the Wisps or Hollow Knight. These games are real video games and not some pile of half-baked garbage pumped out before a deadline. ZZZ might not necessarily be quite up in that alley, but as far as I have seen, the passion is very much there. The only thing left is for the end game to not disappoint, because this is a live service game, so that's gonna be important. By the time we get to it, as long as the endgame loop is replayable and not boring, my review will remain unchanged. But for now, I really like what I see. Earlier, I mentioned that the game blends in some aspects from the 80s and the 90s. To quickly elaborate on that, aside from aesthetics, ZZZ also has an arcade zone where you can go and literally play minigames with a multiplayer option against real people. And I believe they have a ranking board for each minigame, which in my opinion is a really nice touch. This arcade zone has a huge potential later down the line, just like the entirety of the rest of the game. I am glad they implemented multiplayer in such a fashion. I also have one final point of praise to give to the developers. And it's about this feature right here, the video archive. Holy shit, I cannot thank the developers enough for adding this in the game. Remember earlier when I said that the game crashed while I was recording? Well, because of that, I lost half of my recording, which amounts to an hour's worth of early game footage. And some of you might know that I was extra pissed off, because that exact same thing happened to me while I was recording a playthrough of Elden Ring just a few days ago. But then I found this feature after a few minutes, and it's a freaking lifesaver! Because look, you can go into it and it has all of the important cutscenes and character dialogues in the main story, which is not only good as a backup option in case the original footage is lost, but it also helps a lot if I want to go back and grab a specific cutscene on its own in the future. Listen, I know I am one of the 4 people on the planet who give a shit about this feature, but I am so happy they added it to the game, and yeah, that's about it. Thanks, Hoyoverse. At any rate, this is the end of my review. Like I said, the voice acting is good, the animations are good, the combat is extremely fun, and the art direction is fantastic. If you don't mind the gacha, or if you are someone who can control themselves, or, well, if you have a lot of money to burn, that too, then you should definitely give Zenless Zone Zero a try. If I were to rate ZZZ, I would give it a solid 8.5 out of 10, assuming the endgame loop is at least above average, and I was told it's decent. The only major aspect I didn't cover is the story, and that is primarily to avoid spoilers and to also give myself enough time to become versed enough in the world. But don't worry, it's pretty good. And if you are wondering whether I will be covering its lore in the future or not, I think you already know the answer. Yes, I will. But first, I will wait and see if I can find a way to integrate it well into the rest of my videos. Anyway, huge thanks to everyone who supports this channel on Patreon. That's gonna be it from me for now. I've been My Name for now, and I will see you soon. Take care.